Stand for the pledge, please.
Whoops, we're missing one council person.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure he'll be right.
Yeah, we can start. We've just got it. We'll do the pledge as long as everybody's standing, and then I'll apologize to him when he comes in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a moment. Take the roll.
O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Alms.
Here.
DeZiel. Weber.
Here.
Atkins Hoggett.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right, first thing we have, it's a pleasure to have another officer joining our force. Susan, are you here? Okay. Derek? Chief?
This is Derek Fravert, joined our agency a couple months ago. Went through field training. He's been out on solo patrol for about a month now. Originally from the Chippewa Falls area. Graduated high school, served our country in the Marine Corps for 4 years before going to college to become a police officer.
Very nice, thank you.
Been a great addition to the department so far.
True, he has been a great addition to the court officer. Surprise. So, do you want to raise your right hand? And I, Derek Fravert,
I, Derek Fravert,
having been appointed as police officer for the city of Hudson,
having been appointed for the police officer for the city of Hudson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States
to uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of
and
Wisconsin
the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin
to the best of my
to
ability,
the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thanks for your service. Congratulations.
It's good. It's all right.
Next up, public hearings. Class B liquor license and Class B beer annual liquor license renewals for Azul Tequila Inc., Cinema Entertainment Group, and Red Tail Enterprises. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to comment on the liquor licenses? Anyone who would like to make a comment? Anyone who would like to make a comment?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to close public hearing. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Hearing's closed. Discussion, possible action on annual liquor license renewals as listed on the issue sheet for Azul Tequila Inc., Cinema Entertainment Group, and Red Tail Enterprises.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Discussion?
Are we on D? I'm
We're
sorry.
on B.
We're on B.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing for the request of a combination Class B liquor license and Class B beer liquor license submitted by 715 doing business as Omerta, 523 2nd Street. Anyone here?
Good evening.
Evening, Drew.
Andrew Nelson, Nelson Lindquist here in Hudson, Wisconsin. Represent 715, their application process here. Excuse me. The owner of 715 is Paul Rohde. He also owns Universal Hospitalities, doing business as the Agave Kitchen, downtown Hudson here. I've represented Paul since shortly after he moved downtown to Hudson with the Agave Kitchen since late 2008 anyway. I've not been made aware of any issues that he's ever demonstrated with the use of liquor license there. They've always maintained their application process. They've always maintained their licensed servers. I don't know that there's ever been any issues of the underage consumption, any concerns that have been raised with the city with the operation downtown on what is probably the busiest corner in downtown during the summer. They consistently see many thousands of people coming in and out of there every year. And I think that his history, his commitment to maintaining the policies that he has in place with his employees and whatnot, I think demonstrates that he would be a good candidate to approve for the liquor license here. And I would encourage the board to do that.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments?
Move to close. Second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion is approved. Discussion and possible action on the issuance of a combination Class B liquor and Class B beer license to 715 LLC doing business as Omerta 523 2nd Street.
Move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion second to approve.
I'd like to discuss it a little bit. Sure. As the representative for the downtown district, I have received several business owners' comments to me of concerns of the balance between retail and food and liquor establishments downtown. That I think it might be a good time with our comprehensive plan going into place that we take a look at. I think there are other communities that have ratios that they can put in place to establish so that we can maintain some sort of balance. This particular one is taking a jewelry shop and turning it into yet another eating and dining and drinking establishment. So, and it doesn't have its own parking, so we're taking another piece of the parking puzzle and adding more parking pressure. That's one of the concerns I'm hearing. I think those are the big ones, but just to really think now might be a good time for us to, with the development of the TIF district and all this redevelopment that's going downtown, that we really start thinking about what do we want the city, the downtown, the historic district to look and feel like, and what kind of businesses do we want, and what kind of mix are we hoping to achieve. I hear a lot. I hear it a lot. We don't want to be another Stillwater. We don't want to be another downtown Stillwater with really only drinking and eating being the main draws, and rather than the shops. So I just wanted to voice that and see if anyone else had any feelings about.
I think that the state statutes on liquor licenses will preempt us from adding too many more establishments downtown because of the liquor license availability. But I think that you make a valid point that it is good to encourage more retail downtown, because that brings in people at different times as well. Was this the only applicant for the? Okay, that's what I was assuming, otherwise we'd have it.
We're filling a vacant building, which is important.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My concern is parking.
But
I
yes,
don't-
parking, you
I
make a
haven't
good.
heard anybody address that issue with this establishment. Whether, Mike, I don't know if you can or not. Is he paying for a new parking for seating? Mike Johnson? I don't know the specifics of the. So it hasn't been presented that way? We don't know. Any applications or any. Okay, so we haven't seen an application, we haven't seen a build-out or anything like that, Mike? There's my concern, and before I would approve it. It's no different than Jim, you asking your questions about other projects. We haven't seen a plan. So now why would we start? We don't have to rush into this. I want to see the plan first.
So you're saying that we don't need to issue the liquor license yet? We wait till a plan is in place?
Typically, we see the plan first. And Drew, I don't know if you can answer those questions or not. Certainly would like to have the project in front of us before we give you a license.
Well, I can certainly try. I know that Paul's line of thought on this was that he needs to make sure that he has liquor license moving forward before he puts a tremendous amount of money into the architectural plans and the design work on that. I mean, there's only so much you can do with that space. It is not a huge space. It's going to be roughly a third of the size of what he's got at Agave right now. It's going to be very similar to what did they just open up right up here not too long ago? Pedro's del Este. It's going to be about that size. I can't imagine it's going to be much different from that.
But is there a full menu? Is there how many seating for how many people? That's the kind of details I would like to see. That we've always gotten before issuing a liquor license.
Okay.
Is it a restaurant? Is it a bar restaurant?
It would be a bar restaurant. It's not going to be, again, it's going to be a small plates type of thing, is my understanding. Similar to the Pedro's del Este. I guess his line of thought was that he would apply for the liquor license, hopefully get that, and then have justification for spending the money on the architectural work. Otherwise, he simply wasn't able to go through with the project.
Well, I don't see that we're asking for complete plans and specs, but maybe just a
Concept.
general scope and some SketchUps. The initial design is not a full-blown investment on the part of any building owner.
Okay.
Do we need to postpone this until our next meeting so that he can be here to answer the questions? Would that be a good
Well,
way of
yeah.
doing things?
I'd agree with that. I mean, I want to see something.
And you could ask staff to look at any parking issues.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on the
He shouldn't be any different.
number of, people that are going to be served, that kind of thing.
Shouldn't be any different than anybody else who's had to present downtown as far as parking is concerned and an overall concept of design and what's happening.
I agree. There is no information that was being asked for or that was required anyway. We just submitted the application and, we're informed as to when the meeting is. I certainly had no idea that we were supposed to come prepared with any kind of concept plan.
Is there room for outdoor seating in the back or
No.
on the roof or anything like that? Okay.
No.
So it would just be whatever is inside then?
Yes.
But you don't have a number for seating?
I don't know. I mean, I guess there's square footage information available, but I don't know what the plan is or what the plan will even entail regarding where they're going to place the kitchen, how large the kitchen's going to be, the bathrooms, those types of things that will
How many
take up the
employees?
space.
I have more idea.
I don't know.
I think the other piece would be, when would this be in operation? So we can tie up a license for a year and still not have anything there.
Well, I think they have
I
a
don't think we
certain
wanna
amount of
do that.
time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I think they have a certain amount of time within which to actually utilize the license, if I'm not mistaken.
90 days.
Yeah. So he would,
So 90 days is a pretty short amount of time to start with design and
think it
specs
would be a
and
mistake.
furnishings and build out.
he would be in operation within 90 days. It's gutted right now. I think it's been gutted already.
Well, I'm not being too cynical, but we've heard this before around licenses and when places are going to be in operation. And we have numerous times, almost every license it seems, where we have to re-extend the time, and I don't think we should start out that way. It's 60 days to get through plan commission, minimum.
I can't remember exactly how it went with Pedro del Este, but the one issue that I see that differentiates this from other buildings downtown that we worked with is that they have, I think almost invariably, like I said, maybe possibly with the exception of Pedro's, is the liquor licenses were already attached to the buildings. So if you bought the building, realistically, you had the liquor license. This is different because there is no liquor license attached to that building.
Joyce, should be willing to pull yours and postpone it?
What does everybody else, anybody else want me to do that? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, I will pull it and postpone it to our next meeting.
Okay?
Second.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah, did the seconder? I thought Jim,
It was,
did you second the?
Yes, I agree.
Oh, okay, so.
Oh, you agree? Okay.
So yeah, the next meeting's in 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I'll come prepared with some plans.
Okay.
Good.
Would that require, it shouldn't require another public hearing, should it?
I don't think so.
I don't think it would matter. Nobody came to this one.
I don't think so.
We've held the public hearing.
It's close enough.
Okay. All right.
Fair enough, thank you.
Thanks, Drew. All right, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Anybody have any comment on anything that is not an agenda item tonight? Are there any comments? Yes, sir. If you would, please come up, identify yourself and your address.
My name is Tom Geltz, 763 Aldro Road, Hudson, Wisconsin. It's my wife and I's 30th wedding anniversary tonight, and we decided to come here and spend it with the
Well, thank you. Congratulations.
My wife here, Wendy. Thank you. I'm a safety consultant, and I've spent a great deal of the last 2 years working with the Minnesota legislature on passing a hands-free bill there, which we finally got put into law. I work in Minnesota, but I live here in Wisconsin for my whole life. My wife and I are going to introduce a city ordinance for hands-free in Hudson, and I just wanted to introduce myself to the council so you know who I am. We're going to do that at the next public safety meeting, which I just found out was supposed to be this Thursday, but I guess it's next Thursday. And my daughter Megan, who went to school here in Hudson, was killed by a distracted driver right across the river on Highway 95 heading north into Stillwater back in 2016 on February 29th. And so that's why, as a safety consultant, you know, I do this kind of public safety, traffic safety anyway. And we had some good luck and good fortune in Minnesota, and I'd like to do the same thing here in Wisconsin. And I'm going to start right here in good old Hudson, and then move on to St. Croix County and go for the rest of the state too. But I appreciate you guys listening to me, and hopefully we'll be able to get this done. I've got a lot of information and facts and findings we can get to in other meetings, subsequent meetings. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah, very sorry for your loss. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Consent agenda?
consent agenda items for tonight's meeting are as follows. Approve the minutes from the May 20th, 2019 regular common council meeting. Approve the claims in amount of $1,159,086.59. Approve the operator license applications as listed on the issue sheet. Approve the taxi license renewal application submitted by A Taxi. Approve the taxi cab driver's license applications for 6 applicants as listed on the issue sheet. Approve the updated salary schedule for department heads and exempt employees. Approve the purchase of a 2018 Dodge Journey for the police department with additional cost to equip the vehicle with necessary equipment. Approve the salary reclassification for the city engineer position.
Okay,
Try now.
do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion second to approve, roll call?
Morissette.
Yes.
Holmes.
Yes.
DeZiel.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Atkins-Hoggett.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved, consent agenda items are approved. We are,
Are we taking up D,
oh,
the secondhand dealer
no,
license?
no, we didn't take that up in the
Oh, okay.
Finance Committee.
Is that going to be next, at the next meeting then?
Most likely.
Most likely.
Most likely?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to skip
A and B.
8A and B and move into C, discussion of possible action on ambulance service agreement between the City of Hudson and Lakeview Memorial Hospital Association. So for everybody that has been following the Contract Negotiation Committee, we finalized the language to be sent to the council last Thursday night and voted to send it on to the city council. And so that language is before us this evening for discussion and for possible action. Anybody?
I'm going to move to postpone a vote on the contract until the public has had time to evaluate the contract and give us input.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone a vote.
The contract was,
We can still, I mean, the point was to discuss it.
we can still discuss it, but I just, I don't.
All right, so any discussion?
I think about the,
The motion.
I would support delaying it because, to my knowledge, it didn't get on the city website until Saturday. There was a number of people that, people just haven't seen it, to be honest with you. And I just feel like we've spent, I know it's been a long process, and I appreciate your patience, gentlemen. But I feel like as rigorous as we've been with discussion and contract negotiations, particularly the last 2 months, I just think we owe it to the public to show them the product and give constituents a chance to weigh in and give people a chance to really think about it and talk. I haven't had much of a chance at all to talk to my constituents, so I just think we owe it to them. I think that's why I support the motion. Yep.
You know, if I could interject, Paul, with all due respect, after this last weekend, as the public safety chairman, it's unacceptable and unprofessional, whether ill will intended or not, to put our folks in the position that they were in over the weekend. We can't delay this any longer for people's well-being downtown, down in the EMS department, or the citizens that you represent as a safety level, as your due diligence as a council member to press and move forward with this. Enough is enough. It's time to make the tough decision, which will be the best outcome for the safety of our citizens with coverage throughout our city 24/365. Enough is enough. I want to see this move forward. We've been talking about this almost 3 years now. We have the information, folks have the information, it's out there. Let's stop playing politics with the safety of our citizens.
I appreciate your passion and your sentiment, and, part of me agrees with you. I just don't think it's good government, Randy. I think people need to see this. It's a product we've been working on for months, and I think in the case of open government, we just need to have it digested. So I think there are some short-term problems that you're referring to, and I get that, but I think there's some solutions we can do that. And considering the magnitude of a 10-year contract, all I'm asking for is 2 weeks. And I think that we owe it to these citizens for the long-term safety to have that 2 weeks to really make a good, informed decision. Not just us, but I think the public. This is a public issue, so.
I support what Paul has said. I really think that since this went up on Saturday, people aren't aware that it went on to the website, that it was available to download and read and review and to provide us with comments and feedback. It's been a very hot topic, obviously, for a lot of people. And pushing a 2-week pause, I don't see as an unreasonable approach for us to give the public that time to review this contract. It's been a lot of work going into it, and we need, if we are going to move forward to it, we want them to fully understand it and be behind it. We need everybody to embrace this contract. If we do move forward with it, it should have that opportunity for consensus from the public, people it affects the most.
I have some comments that I'd like to make about the contract. Well, first of all, I want to thank the negotiating committee for all the work they've put into this process. I know it has been a big time commitment, and I appreciate your hard work. My comments are designed to make sure that the contract protects the safety of all covered by it. We have one chance to get this contract right. There are no do-overs for 10 years if we don't do it right the first time. We have mutual aid agreements in place for the reason that Randy stated about concerns about our service. We should not be hurried to sign a contract, and it would be irresponsible to sign one before the following items are addressed. I have asked this question a number of times and have not gotten a satisfactory answer. I would like to know how often all ambulances are out on calls and there are no ambulances available if an additional call comes in. Also, how often are all but one ambulance out on calls, leaving one ambulance to cover the entire 350-plus square mile service area? When only one ambulance is available, it is usually 20 minutes away. We need to know how often we can expect that. If there is an emergency in Hudson, we need to have our first responder program properly staffed with enough responders of appropriate skills. Lakeview has told us they know where every ambulance is at every moment, but they don't store this data. I have asked several times what software program is used to track the ambulances, but they have not answered my question. Since this information is used by Alina for dispatching, Alina must be able to access historical data and should be able to provide these statistics. It would be irresponsible of us to sign a contract that doesn't give us this information upon request. For the safety of our residents, we need our first responder program ready to be implemented at the same time as the contract. I don't believe that a 10-year exclusive contract is in the best interest of the city. We need to protect the city's future bargaining position. 5 years is what we have used in the past, and if another service becomes available that can deliver the same level or better service at the same or better price, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the residents of Hudson to contract with that service. When companies sign 10-year exclusive agreements, they usually get fixed rates for the life of the contract. Lakeview is not offering anything in exchange for this exclusivity. I would expect them to provide flat, fixed billing rates in exchange for exclusivity, and I believe that we need to have a 5-year contract. The billing rates to the patient are not specified in the contract. We would be irresponsible to approve a contract that does not specify the billing rates and limit increases to them. Their rates are listed on their website. Why can't they be listed in the contract? Would you sign a personal contract for a service without the rates listed? I certainly would not. With dynamic deployment, Lakeview has all ambulances available to their entire service area based on the calls that come in. The Hudson area will not have exclusive use of the 2 ambulances based at Hudson Hospital. Our contract should not ignore this fact. It should clearly state the number of ambulances that Lakeview must supply to the entire serviced area and have clear requirements for increasing the number of ambulances.
I feel we need to make this decision now.
Can you speak up, please, Bill?
Sure. I feel like we need to make this decision now. Either way, thumbs up, thumbs down. 2 things. First and most important is our employees with St. Croix EMS. They are looking for this decision sooner rather than later. I think that is part and parcel to what happened this weekend in terms of staffing. They are living in ambiguity. They are living in this gray zone of not knowing. I'm concerned about the staffing for the next 2 weeks. Should we shelf this? I appreciate the comment about public input. From my perspective, I put a lot of time in, as you guys know. And I promised the people that voted for me that I would look at every issue from a lot of different facets, talk to a lot of different people that are a lot smarter than I am. I think we need to make this decision. Look, the process, one thing that I guess I'm proud of in this process is the process in and of itself, right? We went out for RFP in, what was that, November, right? We've held every meeting about this in open forum. We had 2 contract negotiation pieces. We sat in closed session for each one of those, about 2 hours amongst ourselves. Joyce and Sarah, you were both there. And we came out and we deliberated the stuff that we needed to deliberate. I think we need to make this decision tonight for many reasons.
Would it be reasonable to ask Josh to come and tell us what he would think about scheduling for the next 2 weeks if we were to postpone and obtain that public, and reach out to our constituents to get their feedback? Yes, of course.
Randy, would you speak to what happened? We're kind of dancing around what happened this weekend. Can we just say what happened this weekend?
We didn't have proper coverage at all, and I'll leave it to the mayor.
I think, we've made enough reference to it here. I think it's important, seeing as how everybody wants the public to understand everything that's happening here. We were informed last Friday at probably just about noon that we did not have coverage starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, all the way through 4 o'clock in the morning or afternoon?
6 a.m. on Monday.
6 a.m. on Monday. And which meant that at noon on Friday, we were being informed that 4 hours from that point, we were not going to have any ambulance coverage at all for the entire weekend. We came in and talked with Josh. There was nothing untoward about what was happening with the scheduling. There was nothing nefarious. It's just that, and this is where it gets into the whole issue about whether we should be postponing or not. And the rationale that was given to us, as well as opinions that were expressed to Bill and me last Wednesday when he and I met with EMS staff in this room to talk to them about, answer their questions about the future and what the schedule was, what, the format was going to be, and a timeline, I guess. But what was expressed to us is that people were tired. We're down to 2 full-time. It's important. Mm-hmm. We're at 2 full-time paramedics right now. Fully staffed is 5. We also have additionally a handful of casual or part-time paramedics, and they have been worked extremely hard, and they have put in yeoman's jobs here trying to keep our service staffed and running while we deliberate on the future of our EMS service. And they're tired, they're shot, and they had a nice weekend looking ahead of them, and I don't blame them one bit without realizing probably what was happening as far as staffing. Josh, immediately when we met with him, put a call out. I don't even think we'd met with him yet.
We hadn't met
prior
with
to
him
us meeting with him, which was by 1 o'clock. I think we were probably sitting down talking with him. But prior to that, as soon as he realized that he did not have staff for the weekend, he put calls out to his staff asking for them to fill shifts. We also had the medical director, Aaron Burnett, on the phone with us, and to their credit, once again, our EMS service staffed Friday, Saturday, and picked up again on Monday, but Sunday was still in doubt. At which point, the medical director more or less insisted that we find another carrier to come in and take over for Sunday because it was still in doubt and he did not want to go into the weekend not knowing whether we were going to be able to fill those shifts. So Josh then put the call into Lakeview and asked them if they would bring a truck in, which they did. Scott St. Martin, the chief, fire chief, at that point had joined our discussion, sat down with us, and offered his assistance, and as far as equipping one of their vehicles with medical equipment to be able to act as first responders in the event that we needed their assistance as well, and also offered up shelter, for lack of a better term, for the Lakeview ambulance that came in, and it was one dedicated ambulances to the city of Hudson for Sunday. And so that was an additional ambulance beyond what is kept at the hospital for purposes of the town of Hudson. So that second ambulance here was dedicated just to the city of Hudson, which I think really the entire story reinforces the notion that we've got to act here tonight. These guys, our staff, as I said, have done yeoman's jobs. Herculean effort has been put in on their part to keep this service running while we, as I said, deliberate. And this is what we've been doing, is deliberating. We've been trying to get this thing to the council as quickly as we could, knowing the pressure that our service was under, knowing the pressure that the staff was under, knowing the pressure that everybody around them and our service was under. So I for the sake of everyone involved, I really think we need to move forward on this vote tonight, one way or another, and move on so that we have some type of direction. There are a number of things ancillary to this motion that I'd like to talk about, but you know, Randy and Bill have both said it well. We have been going through this now for 3 years, 2 years very actively, very publicly, for 2 years very publicly. We have had open meetings that have lasted anywhere between 3 and 5.5 hours that have gotten an extraordinary number of live views on cable and follow-up views on YouTube. I mean, off the charts, all right? It's not like the folks in our community have not had an opportunity to understand what's going on here, not to mention all of the stories and articles that have been in the paper. I can't honestly think of another time that we have put a contract up for public scrutiny like this before. Even the last time we went through this, that contract did not get anywhere near the scrutiny that this one has had. I would also like to add that Lakeview doesn't operate with contracts. The only operational contract that they have right now is with the town of Hudson. And from what I understand, the only reason they did that is because of the contract that was started with us 3 years ago. So when we talk about different elements of the contract, and perhaps this isn't to the motion itself, but this is to some of the things that Joyce had to say, we insisted on this contract. They didn't come to us and say, we insist on 10 years. We insisted on 10 years. This was what we wanted to do. As far as delaying this until we get a first responder piece in place, that's on us. That's not on Lakeview. That's not part of the contract or the contract negotiation process. And they have said very, very clearly that they will support, equip, train our first responders, and tossed us the ball. if you're going to have first responders, you guys are going to have to set up that program. That's on us. Bear in mind, we're currently operating without first responders. We've been doing that forever. So it's not a critical piece to this contract or to the service at this point, certainly not enough that would mandate that we postpone this vote. So for everyone involved, I really believe we should be moving forward tonight. I think we owe it to everybody. We owe it to the EMS service so that they have direction. We owe it to the citizens who have been watching this for a long time and are saying, please fix it. All we care about is that we know that we feel secure knowing that we have ambulances available to us when we need them.
From my perspective, it's almost suicidal to say this, but I've heard so much from my constituents and public for years, 3 years now, that I've been deeply involved in this, learning what EMS service really is. And I'm not going to hear anything in the next 2 weeks that's going to change my mind. It just can't be there. There's no one's going to drop a piece of magic word on me that says, oh, you got to change your mind, you got to do it differently because of this. We know the contract isn't, it's a good contract, but we know there are issues. We have things in place to track those issues and to have corrective actions and to follow this procedure very well as we implement this contract. So it's going to be a work for another year to make sure that everything is running as well as it could. And so I'm from that perspective, and I've changed my mind since this morning. What we need now is not public review and contribution to us, but is to explain the contract to the public. So here's what we've done, here are the issues, here's what we're doing to track. And we can probably all address, there's maybe five points that are concerns out there that float around in one form or another. And we can just say, here's what we're doing on service. You know, here's what we're doing on first responders. So we can go through that and define each of those pieces. And I think that's what we owe the public. Have a question and answer session, say, here's my concern, here's what we've done to address that. And I think that's where we're at now. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but I am not going to hear anything that's going to change my mind at this point.
I want to further explain a little bit about our conversation with the employees of St. Croix EMS who really wanted delineated sort of the time frame, right? I think there's 2 time frames, and one of them we're overlooking, and I think this goes back to still the motion about waiting, is that I feel that a whole new set of work starts if we were to move for this contract. It's not an overnight piece. It's a transition period. One that, I don't know if it takes quite a year, but that does take some time. But I still think we should be making our decision. I see that Josh is back up. You had a question for Josh, Joyce?
That was
Or
me. I
was
just
that you,
wondered.
Sarah? I'm
I
sorry.
just wondered what his general sense was if we were to go 2 weeks out, giving the public time to review the contract. Would we be able to be staffed? What was his just gut on that?
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The first responders piece, I'd like to tell you that it is going to be taken up in public safety. We are going to start that process. And we will include whether we go that direction or not with Lakeview. Because in the contract, it says that they will offer the training and stuff. So we're going to work that out. So we are taking up first responders and public safety. If not this month, for sure next month.
Thanks.
So no coverage on June 29th, correct, Josh?
Yeah, but 2 weeks only goes to June 17th.
2 people, 22, 15, 3 people.
It looks
8,
like the weekends are
people.
the trouble spots.
Unfortunately, it's unacceptable. In my mind. Safety first.
Josh?
You also gotta remember that my schedule's not set. People pick up day by, I mean, how many shifts were picked up today? No. So, I mean, it goes day by day. I mean, everybody's under the same boat. Nobody knows their schedule out, 2 or 3 weeks in advance.
On Friday, you said Friday and Saturday of this week were critical. Friday, it looks like you've got
Now
picked
it's
up
filled,
staff.
and Saturday's filled up, so.
When we did have that discussion with the medical director, and I believe Lakeview said okay to 48 hours notice. Am I remembering that
Right.
correctly?
No more than 48.
No more.
Or fewer than 48.
Right. In terms of asking for backup.
Who are the EMTs or the physician,
Paramedics?
I mean, are they on every shift?
Are they on every shift? Yes.
So everything that you have staffed here, we have paramedics on?
Correct.
So is the first person listed in each shift the paramedic? For the most part? Okay.
Is the 9th considered staffed well enough with those 6 people, 6 coverages?
Yes.
So really, we're looking at the 13th, 14th, and then those 2 Saturdays. And the Sunday, the 16th. No, just those 1, 2, 3 days, 4 days. And the second weekend is a ways out, so people will be getting their schedules for their jobs at hospitals and other
Correct.
things. You would anticipate those would fill in. So probably not a public safety issue for delaying for 2 weeks.
Josh,
Depends on the definition of public safety issue, so.
may I ask morale? What's your gut?
Morale as far as what way it is right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's ugly.
What is that?
I don't know.
Are you looking for us to make a decision?
Am I? Yeah, I want it done and over with. Is staff want a decision to be finally made? I don't know. There's one here at least. But, I don't know. I think it's gone on long enough, but that's my opinion.
Sure.
Well, I agree with you, Josh. I feel bad for the employees and appreciate the hard work that they put in and their loyalty to St. Croix EMS. But I would really like to get these issues, have these issues addressed.
I mean, the biggest thing is 2 weeks ago, over almost 3 weeks ago, I asked for that. I told them I'm overwhelmed, stressed, beyond my limitations, and I asked for help from the city, which I haven't gotten, which is how we come to the situation of, our meeting on Friday. So, it sucks when you sit up here and say that this is a public safety issue and that I put our citizens in the city of Hudson at risk. Alderperson Morissette.
Josh, it's the whole situation. You can't take it personally.
No.
Well, sad thing is though, Randy, I do take it personally. Your statement that you made was
This is bigger than you.
then it needs to be stated like that.
And I'll say it again, it is a public safety issue. We have people's lives at issue here.
Was the city of Hudson uncovered at all for ambulance service at all during the portion
What
of
were
this
you
last
doing on
weekend?
Friday? I mean, besides trying to figure out the issue. I'm not gonna get in the argument with you. It got covered. You're lucky. What if it didn't?
I don't know. That's why I asked for help from the city. You're the guys, you are the group that's sitting in a U right here and created this problem for the city of Hudson and for St. Croix EMS. I sat in the mayor's office with another city council member and the mayor. I asked for help. I got zero.
Josh,
Well, just,
we asked you what you wanted, and you said you didn't know.
don't
And you
know.
said, why do you keep asking me what I want? I don't know.
I don't-
That's what you said.
Yeah, what did-
We
and what-
asked you what you wanted.
I want help.
Well,
Something.
what does that mean?
I don't, then I'll tell you the same thing
There
right
you
now.
go.
I
You
don't know.
I mean, what can we do? How can we help you if we're not told how we can help?
You don't have any suggestions on how you could help in this process? this
You had
situation?
none? You had none?
I don't, because
Well, unless you can tell us what you want, we can't guess.
okay. And then I stand corrected. Back my whole statement. That's funny, because my son comes and asks me for help, and I go, with what? Well, I need help. Well, let's go figure it out then. What do you need? Let's do this. I don't ask for what, you're asking me an impossible question. How do you help? I don't know how you help. But the city needs to do something. This is the City of Hudson's ambulance service that you currently still run, own, operate, collect money on, employ people, pay insurance, whatever you want to call it. And you guys are sitting up here with your hands tied, doing contract negotiations with another ambulance service, and you forgot about us downstairs. And like I said a couple weeks ago, and like I said all along, I will fight till I have no fight left in me. I told you Friday, I got zero fight left in me because I got no support up here from the people that are supposed to run this ambulance service or assist in running it. So do you think staff is mad? Yeah, staff's mad. Because they see the same thing I do. Then it's continuous shots. You take, it's a public safety issue. Well, yeah. How many police officers, Chief? How many police officers are we short?
7.
Is that a public safety issue? I don't see Willems up here getting licked at or Chief Willems up here getting licked at the podium for being a public safety issue. Why is it just St. Croix EMS? Sorry, any more questions?
I've got some questions for Kathy.
Thanks, Josh.
If the contract's approved, what are the next steps for implementing it?
That's not a legal question, but I would guess we'd get together with Lakeview and talk about how quickly they can get into the ambulances over here. I think they're ready, but that's not a legal issue. There's a discussion later on in closed session about dealing with the employees and possible options there, if that's what you're getting at. But in
Well, it's a
terms
little-
of implementing, that's a logistic thing that can be worked out between the city and Lakeview.
Well, it's a little bit of everything. First of all right, so when Lakeview supplied the ambulance, was that under our mutual aid contract? Is that how it?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in, I think they reached out to get some coverage and just as some primary coverage, not just backup mutual aid. And Lakeview provided that. I mean, I wasn't part of the discussion, but I think the idea was, can you provide us real coverage? And they did that. That's not mutual aid. Mutual aid is backup.
May I interject? During that conversation, we were online with the medical director. Medical director asked Josh, which mutual aid partner would you like to choose to see if they can come in and do that one day? And that was, the decision then he made was Lakeview.
Okay, so
And
it
then we
wasn't.
reached out to Lakeview as a mutual aid partner to to cover us for a 24-hour period.
Well, and I appreciate Lakeview stepping up and doing that. I want to make sure that people understand that I do appreciate that.
To your question a little bit earlier about the next step, in my mind, if we were to go to that next step, I don't know, I'm not the chair of public safety, but I would assume it would be a public safety committee decision, as it would directly impact public safety. I don't know if you would agree with that?
Are we ready to vote on the hall motion?
Which is to delay
To delay.
2 weeks, postpone.
To the next meeting.
Yeah. You all set? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
It's 3-3. The mayor votes nay. So we have now before us the contract.
I would like to hear from...
Is there a motion?
Oh, sorry.
I'll move that we reject the contract altogether.
You have a motion? Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there another motion?
I move to accept the ambulance service agreement between the City of Hudson and Lakeview Memorial Hospital Association as outlined in the draft contract we received on May 31st, and to direct the City of Hudson Public Safety Committee to determine and recommend the necessary length of time for transition, the process by which we transition, and the changes in existing public safety deliveries, if necessary, up to and including first responders and dive team.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Discussion.
Can you say that again, Bill?
You want me to read back the motion?
Yeah, can you?
Sure. I move to accept the ambulance service agreement between the City of Hudson and Lakeview Memorial Hospital Association as outlined in the draft contract we received on May 31st, and to direct the City of Hudson Public Safety Committee to determine and recommend the necessary length of time for transition, the process by which we transition, and the changes in existing public safety deliveries, if necessary, up to and including first responders and dive team.
Okay, thank you. No, it's okay, I'm good.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The date that this document gets signed is, of course, the date it gets signed, but it does have a blank in its effective date. So what would we fill that in with prior to having the agreement actually signed by the parties to the contract?
That is a question.
I'm sorry, I was distracted, so could you repeat that?
Okay.
Well, I was trying.
So a contract has a date that the parties sign the contract.
Yes.
But it also has an effective date, which can be before, on, or after that signature date. And I'm wondering, prior to signing this contract, what would that blank be filled in with?
When it's going to be implemented?
Correct, because it's effective on,
Yeah, I think when we know the transition plan,
So-
it will become effective in its entirety at that point.
so
It
after,
could be-
after it goes to public safety is going to determine the effective date?
Well,
Can send it
no, I think you'll come up with a recommendation
Yeah.
and the council will
Right,
approve
well-
it. But I think it probably can be implemented over time, or do we want to hear from Lakeview in terms of a possible timeframe?
If you want to hear a possible timeframe, sure. I mean, we could, bring them up.
I think it's kind of important.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's your question.
Well, Sure, I just wondered how we're gonna determine the effective date, or if that should be part of your motion, or if
Okay.
it's gonna get put off to public safety for recommendation to come back here.
I mean, the
It's just a
contract,
question.
once it's approved, will be, and
Effective.
signed, will be binding and effective. Implementation may take some time. So that we are once it's approved by council, signed by the parties, the city and Lakeview are in a contract to perform these services.
So it's effective right at signature.
It's binding on the parties, and the parties determine how to implement it, because it's not the type of contract that can be implemented overnight.
Okay.
You're wondering when the clock starts on the 10 years.
Yeah, pretty much, And when are they gonna be, when are we no longer going to be covering our shifts and, right, that kinda seems like the effective date to me.
Well, they also have to apply for the state,
No, they have their operational plan.
Well, they have to
in
amend
and
it.
approved.
They have to amend it.
Well, it's approved, correct, by the state?
Good evening, John Muller, Lakeview EMS. No, Sarah's right. We would have to update our operational plan
Oh,
to
to-
include the city of Hudson and the other communities.
Okay.
So while you're up there, John, some idea if the contract were to pass, what is the transition plan?
Honestly,
time.
yeah, we've not really talked about it. I mean, there's a lot of things we have to do. We still have to hire staff to add another ambulance 24 hours a day, 365. But I think we would work with the Public Safety Committee to come up with a understanding and an agreement when we could get things rolling. And there certainly could be situations where we have to step in earlier and provide some backup support if that's needed, but a full implementation, I can't give you an exact date on that.
Can you give us an estimate? I mean, would you be able to do this
Okay.
within a month?
I don't think a month is realistic,
Okay.
in the terms of hiring people. I mean, ideally, I would hope that we could do it in 3 months. That would be my ideal situation. I understand that might not be possible. So.
Meaning,
Anything to add to that, Ted?
I've still got another question for John before you take over. What, do you have enough staffing to provide backup coverage as needed? I mean, you've heard about St. Croix EMS.
Everyone in EMS has staffing issues right now, so, what you see in St. Croix EMS is not uncommon throughout EMS. I just have a larger pool of staff. I have a lot more full-time staff. We don't see a lot of issues with staffing. But I'm not going to stand up here and say, oh, I never have any problem staffing. I don't know if someone's going to call in sick tomorrow, and, weekends are a struggle for everyone. We didn't have people ringing the phone off the hook to pick up the shifts this weekend, but we got it covered, so.
So then, they would have to put in overtime if needed, is that correct?
Certainly, all of our full-time staff, anything they do is at overtime.
Okay.
Yeah. But we have a number of casual and part-time employees as well.
Yeah, this is Ted Wegleitner, I'm president of the hospital. The only thing I was wondering, Kathy, if we could put something in there that would say that the implementation would be on a mutually agreed-upon timeline. And we want to, obviously go as quickly as we can, understanding the situation here and phasing it in to help relieve some of the pressure that's on. But I wonder if that might be a way to deal with the language issue.
Well, part of the process, the motion is directing public safety and including Lakeview, so I think that should be sufficient.
We'll meet as often and as early as possible.
Well, haven't we raised a concern then that if 3 months is the time of implementation and St. Croix EMS is going to be staffing its own shifts for that whole time, I think we need to make a commitment to Josh to, I mean, I don't know, and hear from him if he even thinks that's possible. Or maybe I'll just throw it back to public safety, but I think it's worth mention that we're saying a 3-month period, and I didn't hear anyone talk to Josh about his feelings about being able to maintain for 3 months. I think it might be a valid concern.
Well, he asked what help we can offer to him. It's not on the agenda.
I think we have an agenda item directly after this to discuss this piece.
Discuss that? Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I mean, not.
It doesn't address our
the
staffing
not
issues
the
for 3 months.
Logistics of getting staffing. There's some options to encourage employees to remain.
Okay.
So there is some leeway in that discussion to be able to bring up some of these things, some suggestions.
Well, not on the logistics of how to fill a schedule, except to the extent that we can offer incentives for people
Okay.
to stay. That's
Okay.
one of your options.
Okay.
And that's what we have done in the past.
I have a statement I'd like to make. As we all know, well, first, thanks for the committee, those long hours that you all put in before the actual contract language was developed. Those were several meetings that you guys put in a lot of hours, and I just want to acknowledge that. We all know our EMS department has been through the perfect storm that's lasted for many years now. Alderman Alms did an excellent job reviewing that history at a previous council meeting. It's no secret that I believe that all along it was city leadership's responsibility to step up for this department when the challenges arose. Just like our fire and police departments, as well as our IT department, community development, and finance departments, if there are critical issues within any department, it is city leadership that should step in with resources and skills to face the challenges successfully, whatever those difficulties are. And when I say city leadership, I'm referring to the people around this table now, the ones who sat here before us, and it includes the city administration that oversees the entire organizational entity that we know as the City of Hudson. If any department becomes broken, it is leadership's responsibility to fix it. And that includes all of us, not just the department head. When I hear the discussion of staffing problems over the years and the troubles with staffing, that they were insurmountable, I believe leadership should have stepped in with resources and ideas to resolve those issues back then. I did not see that happening. In my opinion, we made demands of the department's revolving leadership while offering very limited support, guidance, or the brainstorming of solutions. Now we find ourselves at a crossroads. We have let the troubles go for so long that we are looking to throw up our hands, erase the department altogether, and allow an outside entity to provide this critical life-saving service to our citizens instead. My largest concerns are still with response times and user fees. These really trouble me. In fact, they scare me in a way. As far as response times are concerned, I don't see how Lakeview can possibly beat our response times while they are covering such a large territory with limited number of ambulances. St. Croix EMS always sends 2 vehicles out on every call, 1 vehicle and 1 ambulance. Sometimes our vehicle gets there first. We only report our response times when the ambulance gets there, so in many cases we may even be arriving quicker than the reported response times. As part of the contract, there's a process map for deploying the ambulances. It's the colorful one. It's the colorful attachment B, I guess. If we go with this contract, it includes 2 scenarios. The first, in each of these scenarios, actually, there's a set of circumstances listed that would mean we have coverage only from Stillwater or Bayport, or if the Bayport ambulance is not yet in place, it will be coming from North St. Paul. I'm sorry, I don't want my ambulance possibly coming from Stillwater, Bayport, or even especially North St. Paul. The language in the contract in the last attachment states not the last page yet. It states that Lakeview's committed to a response time goal of 9 minutes or less 90% of the time. That target time is measured from the time a line of dispatch gets a call to the time the ambulance arrives at the scene. It does not include the extra time it takes for a line to be contacted. This adds another step. We have all talked about this before, but that additional lag time is not acceptable to me. The person needing the ambulance doesn't wait to start the timer after calling 911. We should not put ourselves in a position where we allow our EMS service to wait to start the timer. Incidentally, an acquaintance of mine recently reported that after a collapse in Lake Elmo parking lot, the Lakeview ambulance took 20 minutes to arrive. This is just not acceptable to me. My second fear for our residents concerning this contract is the invoice they are going to receive after using the service. This contract shifts all costs to the end user. We have no control over the price of the service, no control over price increases. As just one example of the charge that someone might get, Lakeview charges $46.75 for each loaded mile. That is when an ambulance is carrying a patient. St. Croix EMS, the charge is $24.80. So if you need a transfer from Hudson to Regions, you're going to pay $935 with Lakeview and $496 with St. Croix. This charge is in addition to the gross charges for the ALS or BLS service charge. Some people may decide not to call 911 even though they think they should. For others, I have already received comments from residents that they're instructing their spouses to drive them to the hospital themselves. I say no. Some things are more important than money, and fast life-saving measures given by EMS services are one of them. Money should not be a factor for any Hudson resident to consider when deciding whether or not to call for an ambulance. To address this user fee rate concern, the council has been having, and Lakeview is pointing to their charity care policies. I'm sorry, it doesn't settle it for me. In order to qualify for their charity care, you need to qualify based on having a very low income. I don't think the majority of Hudson residents will qualify, but some of those same residents will be greatly burdened to face an ambulance bill for several $1,000s. Another major concern I have is item number 7 on attachment D. This is about their transport plan. It says, the list of hospitals that the service will transport a patient to is at the prerogative of the service manager. I recently learned that Lakeview does not take transfers from Hudson to Mayo, or at least that I heard that this could be the case. I also learned that this past week it's quite probable that it's the case that a Baldwin ambulance came to Hudson to transfer a patient to Mayo. So if Lakeview declines these transfers, then those transfers are going to be on the shoulders of other communities around us, and that leaves their area uncovered. So, you know, the list of hospitals that the service will transport a patient to is at the prerogative of the service manager. We'll have no control over forcing or having Lakeview take transfers to places that are maybe too far for them or their plan. The policy, that policy would be part of our contract. We should not agree to something in this contract that unfairly burdens the EMS services in our surrounding communities and places their residents at risk of not having an ambulance available in their own community. It's just plain wrong for us to do. I could even maybe argue that we may be putting ourselves in grave liability. What if one of these surrounding communities takes up legal issue with it? And we're signing a contract that has impact on our surrounding communities, not just the parties to the contract. While the contract we see now is much stronger than the one that was under consideration in 2017, I still have problems with it. A few meetings ago, the wife of one of our previous mayors spoke. She said that the way we keep local control of a third-party provider is to negotiate a contract with teeth in it. I couldn't agree more, and I don't see strong enough teeth in this contract. There are no penalties for falling short of our expectations or hitting response time goals. Additionally, we have absolutely no say whatsoever in the decision to add ambulances to this area or additional resources to their team. We can suggest it, but such resources are at their sole discretion. We get what we get, not what we ask for. The contract creates a performance review advisory committee, but that is it. It's advisory. It does not have ability to make, it only has ability to make recommendations. There are no penalties for falling short of our expectations. Do I understand that our department needs major changes and repair? Absolutely. Do I think if it is unsalvageable? Absolutely not. We can make a commitment to it, find a new path forward that embraces St. Croix EMS's strengths, continually improves its effectiveness and efficiencies, and is managed properly both internally and the part of leadership and governance. That's the work I'd like to pursue now, even though I know that some of you disagree. Thank you.
Other comments?
I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things, points that you had spoken to, Sarah. If this was a contract with a private entity that has no relationship to the patient after that ride, I may agree with you on a lot of your points. For me, this is a partnership within a healthcare provider within our community, and that makes a difference to me. So I just wanted to say that.
I understand.
Other comments?
I have some, but I don't know where to start. So
you're not going to do it?
I will do it. Thanks for your patience. One of the reasons I was asking for a delay is because I feel like of all the folks on the council, I've been one of the most open-minded in this process. And I really wanted personally 2 weeks to really weigh this out. On April 9th, I don't have a prepared statement, and we're going through a long meeting here before, so apologies if I'm rambling at any point here. On April 9th, I voted to go into contract negotiations with Lakeview because I wanted more information. I also did not guarantee a vote for the contract because I listed 7 stipulations in that evening that I wanted to see. And so I've been sort of on the negotiation committee trying to work with those criteria. One of them was an average runtime of 6 minutes or less, which I know John Mueller had talked about as being possible. And it looked possible based on the data from Stillwater, from what you guys do in Stillwater. As the contract evolved, and we talked about the 90% fractile, which I get, and it sort of results in around a 6% or 6 minute, average runtime. I'm still concerned about the delay from the county. So the county dispatch and the I am responding system, which I appreciate we've been talking about. I'm not an expert, and so it's just really, really hard for me to know if that's going to work. I've had a number of people in the field just say it's risky. You're risking cell phone coverage. You're risking delays. The contract measures the response time from the time Alina informs Lakeview. So the bottom line is, I just don't think we're going to get the 6 minute average response time that I was asking for in April. I think it could be there sometimes, depending on the situation, and I think it also could be there sometimes, depending on I am responding. But it's not a guarantee. And so part of my struggle and part of my doubt the last 2 months in working with contract negotiations is feeling the compatibility of the county dispatch and Lakeview at present are just not a good, they're not a compatible combination. There could be a remedy to that, as we've sort of talked about with the future. At some point, the county may upgrade, which would be a big help, and I think it would help in that. But I'm just not convinced right now that we're at that average as far as the contract language. The second point I asked for was language clarifying the definition of dedicated coverage so that ambulances are available and not dismissed at emergency events until the police or fire chief in charge of the scene releases the ambulances. And that I do think is well covered in the contract. We've been back, clarified the language several times. It still doesn't mention, it mentions the structure fires, but there's other fires. But I'm going to give Lakeview the point on that one because I think that's in the contract. The third thing I asked for was Lakeville will either purchase pagers or software compatible with St. Croix County Dispatch. And that's kind of the similar loop I'm talking about with I am responding. my understanding is that pagers are available, and you guys can clarify this if I'm wrong. I'm just not sure that the ambulance wheels are in motion off the pager. It sounds to me like it's still coming from Alina as put in the contract. Any of this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, so you have a chance to talk about it. The radios are in service. Correct, but what I'm trying to figure out is the ambulances react from, according to the contract, the ambulance, the runtime is still defined as when Alina informs Lakeview, not the pager. So if you can clarify, John, I'd love it.
Yeah. No, so we did purchase the pagers. The pagers were programmed by St. Croix County Dispatch Center. They are with our crews that are based here in Hudson, and our policy is when the pager goes off, they start rolling. So they get on the radio and they let dispatch know that they're en route, regardless of Alina paging us or not. And there's numerous cases over the past couple of weeks where that has occurred, where our rigs went en route before they were paged by Alina. In fact, I got an email from Steve Takash, and he wanted to know why the ambulance is calling dispatch while our dispatchers are on the phone with Alina. What have you guys changed? And I informed him we put the pagers in. So
my follow-up question, I guess, is I've never been in a contract negotiation, so this is big time for me. And maybe this is something I should. I guess what I'm trying to say is, could the language say the response times would be measured from when the pager goes off, as opposed to when Lakeview is triggered by Alina? Because that plays a difference in my own mind. And I know you might not be in a position to answer that, and it's going back after the contract, but I'm just trying to say that. So that would help us, I think. It would help me.
Again, I think, one of the things that we would gladly show the advisory committee is the response times. The response times from when the county receives the call to when we went en route. So we can compare that, and we can kind of see is there a delay somewhere?
Right.
And if there is, then we should recommend that delay gets fixed.
Right. And I totally agree. I guess I would feel better if that language was in the contract, and I know it's not right now, so I'm just saying that's a difficulty that I'm struggling with.
Could I just interject? Sorry, Paul. In my purview with working with this contract, I want to always be, the thing that I always came back was, what was the thrust of that conversation, and make sure that, right? That gets, I'm concerned, I guess, that, let's say we revamp St. Croix County Dispatch, right, in 2021, 2022, right? We're no longer using pagers. Then how do you absolve that out of the contract? I mean, I don't know that would be...
Well, the contract can be amended by agreement of both parties. And we do have this sentence that is their goal, is to strive for as short a response time as possible. And the performance committee is set up to review response times, and Lakeview will report on that. So there's a mechanism for tracking it and having input into whether it's adequate, whether it can be improved. That's the whole purpose of the performance review committee. And the city has 4 persons on that committee. And while it is advisory, it does involve upper management of if we can't get to a satisfactory solution within the committee. So I think it's set up to be taken seriously. There's other municipal, for example, Town of Hudson. So the municipalities have a fair amount of input into reviewing the performance.
Right. I guess what I'm just trying to say is that's a doubt in my mind, and I wish I could guarantee that if this passes, the runtimes would improve in Hudson. I wish I could assure the public of that, but based on the contract language, I can't really do that with the response time delay. The 4th thing I asked for was language clarifying the charity program, that would be included, and you guys did that, so I appreciate that. And I think that's a strong plus. And I realize that can change from year to year, but I'm good with that. I asked for benchmark numbers based on either mutual aid calls or run volumes to trigger additional ambulances to the Hudson area as population increases. And those, I believe, are also in the contract. There's nothing that really stipulates exactly, and I think, Nathan, your language was good a few meetings ago. You would need to look at a number of factors, and the advisory committee would look at that. But I am open in good faith to think that if the mutual aid is above 5% and I forget what it's called, the UHT maybe, am I getting that right? Thank you, is above 0.5. But I'm just saying I think those are in there, so I give that to you. Point 6 was first responders, and to be honest with you, that's really not on Lakeview, that's really on us. It's better defined in the contract, and I thank Bill for some of that language that we put in there. I'm really concerned that we're not ready yet, and I know, Randy, it sounds like public safety is going to pick that up. That's just a piece, regardless of how we move forward, that has to be strengthened. But that's more on us, so I think that's an internal issue we need to look at. And then the last thing I asked for was a clause stipulating that if Lakeview did not perform services through the duration of the contract, I talked about some kind of compensation for the city of Hudson. And Ted, you kind of set me straight on that, so I'm no longer concerned about that. That's more, again, an internal issue where I think if we go with Lakeview, we're going to have to put money aside for kind of a rainy day fund for if we need to get back in the biz at someday. So I guess of the 7 things I'm asking, or asked for, excuse me, I would say the 2 really are on us. 3 I think are really covered well in the contract, and there's 2 I still have concerns about. So that's just a difficulty I'm wrestling with. The next thing I want to say, though, is I have a couple questions for you guys based on some emails that I got on feedback on the contract. I don't know who's going to take them, but can we talk about basic life support transfers that are longer than the Twin Cities? So how would that be handled? Like if Lakeview comes in, how would you, let's say somebody doesn't need to go to Mayo, like Sarah was talking about, like how does that handled?
So just on a 911 call, if we respond to someone and
No, I mean, sorry, this would be a hospital transfer.
Interfacility transfers?
Interfacility, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a long distance. You gotta go Rochester, right? So how
we
does
take them to Rochester. We take the patients where they need to go. We've taken patients to Fargo. We've taken patients out to Hutchinson. We do have some requirements before we do that.
Okay.
Again, number 1 is following the state statute. So you always have to have 1 truck available for your 911 coverage before you can accept an interfacility transfer. So we follow that rule. The second part of that is at night, when our night coverage in our current operation, we have 8 hours of the day where we don't have all 4 ambulances on. During that time frame, we have to have a minimum of 2 ambulances available. So if it's a BLS transfer and it's going to go out of the metro area, we will wait till 7 a.m. or offer the hospital to call whoever they would like to do it. Example of that, I think Sarah may have referred to a call that happened this weekend. I received a call at 1 o'clock in the morning from our dispatch that Hudson Hospital had a non-emergent transfer that needed to go to Mayo Clinic. I said, we'll do it at 7 o'clock in the morning, but I'm not going to do it tonight. If you'd like to call someone else, you can call someone else. And they called everyone, no one did it. At 7:02, we took the patient to Rochester.
So you did transport that patient?
We did transport the patient.
Okay.
We go to Rochester multiple times. We go to Eau Claire multiple times.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. The reality is that we also have some pretty challenging financial picture which is why I also voted to go into negotiations 2 months ago. What I was going to call Allison, can I call you up for a minute? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, at this point, is kind of what's the alternative if we vote it down, right? What's the alternative? So can you just give me a little sense of the financial picture in 2019? I know you're new, but you sent me this today, so.
Yeah, I worked with Devin to do the April statements for the EMS meeting. And you were asking about that, so we sent it forward, and it showed that we did have a 66,000 surplus. But that wasn't accounted for a direct comparison. So with our intergovernmental revenue that we get from the town of Hudson and Troy and that, we get it as a half-year increment.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotten 6 months' pay.
Okay.
But that was only comparing 4 months of expenses to it. And it wasn't accounting for what we had contributed to capital. So it's not a true picture of where it's truly sitting in comparison to the revenue versus expenses.
Right, so I guess if this is correct, the 2019 budget, we budgeted a deficit of 294,000 basically.
Correct.
And it says with a $147,000 subsidy from the town of Hudson, that's included in that.
That was included in that as revenue. So it was offsetting.
So if my math is right, which is sometimes a stretch, once the town of Hudson subsidy ends at the end of this year, December 31st, roughly our deficit would be 348,000 something.
Additional, almost 150,000, yes.
Okay. And are there any projections that you're aware of for, if we kept the local service, is there any projections in terms of farther out than next year?
I haven't been involved with those, so I don't know offhand, no.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess my point is just that we've got some real fiscal challenges, to be fair to the city, to be fair to the picture. I agree that the contract that we have before us tonight is much better than the one 2 years ago, and that's prior to my time on the council. I think that the inclusion of, there is some inclusion of better local control. The advisory board, although true, Lakeview has the bottom line, there's a process for grievances. There's timelines for improvement for performance standards for 3 months. There is a mediation process. There is a process by which we can get out of the contract if we feel that it's not working. And I think that's really important for the public to know. People feel different about local control and yes and no. The point I'm trying to make is that I think it is a modified form of that, although I agree with you, Sarah, that it doesn't have the teeth that I would like to have. But the point I'm just trying to make is it's better, I think, than what we had before. I think the staffing with Lakeview is good, especially as we sort of talk about some of the difficulties we're having right now. Certainly the 2 paramedic model, although not required or necessary by Wisconsin state law, is an advantage as well. I do want to challenge some public notions that are out there that moving to Lakeview will save the city all this money, because I sometimes hear that from people, and people email me that. And I guess I want to say that we need to be careful with that, because to really, I think, work well with Lakeview, we're going to have to become probably more like Stillwater, which is we're probably going to have to beef up our fire department into some kind of a duty crew, because we are just not set up, I think, right now to do what this contract asks for in terms of fire support. Again, that's on us. It has nothing to do with Lakeview. But my point is, for folks who have this magical thought, the city is going to save all this money. It's not. It's going to shift our money from ambulance service, I think, to a duty crew and first responders. You could argue, well, as the years go by and neighboring towns pull out, we will save more money because those subsidies are going to be gone. And I would say yes, it will probably save some. But I just think that can't be our primary motivation. And it's not been my primary motivation, and I want to be very clear. The difficulty for me is what's a safer service? That's what I've been trying to weigh. So one of my concerns is that experts that I've consulted with are skeptical of this contract. And I think that matters. Experts meaning people in the field, paramedics, EMTs, people who've worked. And they're not skeptical. Some of them are from St. Croix EMS to be honest, in full disclosure. They're not skeptical because it's going to cost them their job. They're skeptical because some of the problems I pointed out with run times and the service area that Lakeview's doing is a different model. It's a bigger model. They're skeptical because they think it's going to not be a safer way to do public safety. And I think that's important to listen to. It's also one of the reasons I wanted to have 2 more weeks to get more of a handle on that. I feel rushed tonight, so that's why it's not a prepared statement. But I think that's important. So I guess to sum up, I would say that it's a better contract than we had 2 years ago, for sure. Do we have financial problems and a need to face some realities? For sure. Does it make us safer as a city? I don't know. I can't say that. I really can't say that. I think my doubt has grown over the course of the negotiations. It has not weakened. In no part to you guys. I think you've been fair and honest and forthcoming and patient. I just see us as a city between a rock and a hard place. Part of me, my preference would be, and I know people don't want to delay the vote, my preference would be honestly to delay this whole vote until we hire a city administrator. Because the city administrator, depending on who we hire, could have the skills to really look at this problem and make some suggestions and show some leadership that has put us in, that's been lacking, that's put us in this position. So I guess if you guys insist on a vote tonight, I don't know. And I'd love to take a 5-minute recess and search my conscience, because it's not an easy thing. The other thing I want to say is it's been polarizing for the city, and it doesn't need to be. I don't think it's a black and white issue. I don't think that it's a slam dunk for or against this contract. I think there's things in this contract that are excellent for the city. And like I said, I've outlined some of the concerns. I think our local service is not a slam dunk to keep, but I also think there's some really excellent things in our local service. So if I had to weigh it, I'd say 51-49, 50-50. That's my mind tonight, which is why I'd love the 2 weeks. But if you all want to force a vote, you know, can we take 5-minute recess at least? If you need a vote tonight, I would request that. So that's all I got. Thank you.
I have one more comment that somebody sent me. The comment was about fire standbys. It should not be limited to structure fires. Fire vehicles are equally dangerous with the prospect of being struck by traffic or components, contents of the vehicle exploding, etc. Vegetation and grass fires are still of concern, though people often don't see them as such. Far more physically demanding and less protective gear typically worn, with the leading cause of line-of-duty deaths in the fire service being heart attacks, coupled with a lack of physical fitness standards in the non-career fire service. An ambulance has to be at these incidents as well. So I would like to suggest that we modify the contract to include those.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
How is that not covered under 2.1B?
2.1,
where it says Lakeview EMS will provide standby ambulance and emergency personnel when available upon request of the mayor of the city, St. Croix County Emergency Manager, St. Croix County Dispatch, St. Croix County Sheriff, the city fire chief, or the city police chief when there is a reason to believe that a life-threatening public emergency presently exists or may imminently occur within the city of Hudson, such as fire standbys, rescue and hazardous materials, and response incidents. It is understood by the parties that this crew may respond to another call at our posting station if Lakeview Hospital's other resources are depleted.
okay, does that cover it?
You know
Well,
what?
it's a request of the fire department.
Okay, all right, then I stand corrected.
Anybody else?
I'm going to I want to reread that part. I apologize. That is the previous contract. I'm like, where is the language that we added? We added into that. Please forgive me.
What's the current language, wasn't it?
You read 2.1B.
It is understood by the parties that upon being released by the incident commander, this crew may respond.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
In the previous one,
Anybody else? All right, I just want to say, I'm going to make it, I don't want to make it sound like it's too brief, but really all I have to say has to do with the people that have been working our EMS over the last several generations. It's been said that this has not, what I'm about to say, has not been said enough and has certainly not been said loud enough. And I want everybody to fully understand, this is not about the people that are staffing our current EMS system. The people that have worked for the city are highly professional, highly dedicated people that have served our community faithfully and unselfishly. And if you need a demonstration of that, just look to what we talked about here earlier when it was pointed out that we did not have staffing for the past weekend. Josh sent out a request for staffing and people stepped up once again, gave up a weekend that they had hoped that they'd be able to use for themselves, for their families, to recoup, whatever. But these people have been very dedicated to our community, and I can't thank them enough. I think everybody needs to understand that we owe them a debt of gratitude and a lot of appreciation for the work that they've done. And it's not just the crew that we have here this evening. It's not just the crew that's been working over the past several months. This includes all the people that have served our community in EMS that goes back all the way to the inception of our program. I think that everybody needs to understand that, and it had been pointed out to me that that has not been said enough. So that is something that I will say tonight and will continue to say. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, the road has been long in this process. It started years previous to this last process, and the road has been long since late 2018. Am I happy that my work on this reached this conclusion? No. Am I happy that this process has caused ambiguity and sort of gray, everything's up in the air to our staff? No. What I am happy with this is that the process has been an open process. What I am happy with this is the amount of subject matter experts who I was able to lean on in this process. They shall remain nameless by their request, but their help and insight in this process has been invaluable to me. We are setting a new trajectory in the safety to our citizens, and what you can count on from me is a close eye on the ball through transition and beyond. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to those on the front lines, those filling St. Croix EMS shifts through the years. I would also like to extend an invitation to these folks to actively participate in this transition.
Anybody else?
I think the one thing that hasn't been probably said enough, and Mr. Muller referred to it as, this is a national issue. It's not just a Hudson issue. The shortage of qualified EMS personnel is horrendous. There is just a total lack, and it's an underpaid service, an under-recognized service. It's not recognized at the same level as police and fire protection, and that's a shame, because it's as important or maybe more important. And that it's not just our issue. It's bigger than us. And we were on a track to Brandon's proposal of basically ending up in 5 years with full-time EMTs and paramedics is the answer to keeping the service local, but the price tag was tremendous. It's pushing $1 million, if I remember that figure correctly, in order to have full-time coverage of full-time paramedics at a decent wage. So that is one of the things that does enter into the question, and that's the solution I would have loved to have gotten to, but that's not in the cards.
I do want to point out one thing, and that is that this council in December voted down a proposal to look at a plan for combining fire and EMS, just a plan to see what it would cost. I still think that would have been a great way forward, or would be a great way forward, because the neighboring towns can't really renege on their contracts because they're in a fire service. So if it's a combined thing, they pay for fire and EMS. But that ship has sailed, I think, right now, unless this contract goes down. But the other thing I do want to say, too, is that I want to take responsibility, because I don't see a lot of people who have taken responsibility for the demise of kind of our local piece. The vote to release the town of Hudson, I voted for that. I didn't think we had really good legal grounds to stand on. I just want to say sorry, because I think in retrospect that was the beginning of the end in terms of the financial piece that we put ourselves into, and because when we lost those, then we lost the transfers, and kind of it's a little bit of a house of cards. But I'm saying that was us around the table, so I'm trying to say my bad on that. So my learning, I guess.
Woo.
Wow. We will take a 5-minute recess.
Well, I guess you get your 5-minute recess.
Any other comments? Any other comments? All right, we got the motion before us. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Can you repeat the motion? Which motion?
You want to read back the motion?
Yes.
Oh, Bill's motion. Got it.
Right.
Yeah, that
All right.
Everybody good?
I'm good.
So, okay, so once again, all those in favor of the alms motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
3-3 tie. Mayor votes aye. Contract is approved. I've got no communications here. Anybody? Anything on future agendas? Nothing? All right. Discussion of possible action to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub C to consider employment, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility relating to City of Hudson St. Croix EMS employees, and pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E to deliberate regarding possible agreements with St. Croix EMS employees where competitive or bargaining reasons require.
Move to go into closed session.
Second.
Got a motion, second to go into closed session. Roll call.
Morissette.
Yes.
Alms.
Yes.
DeZiel.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. We will go into closed session. We'll be back when we're done. All right, we are back in open session. And so I think everybody knows what the topic of conversation was, in gratitude for the work that has been done by those folks that have been working with EMS, and in continued gratitude, we're working on pardon me?
Oh, Jenny. Jenny, our,
I know. So we don't have to stop though, do we?
Well, it'd be nice.
she needs to be recording. Well, she can.
Motion.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, as long as she records the motion, I think. So we've been, as you, I'm sure are aware, been working on some type of appreciation standard for the people that have been working for us and who we hope will continue to work for us through the transition period.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to increase all St. Croix EMS wages for all EMTs and paramedics who have at least filled one shift anytime in 2019 by 30% effective at 6 a.m. this morning.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.